Coach Colin here. Normally, I get annoyed when Joe Rogan is sitting with an expert and he starts putting his thoughts of where the future's going in technology ahead of the expert. You know, sometimes I look at Joe and I say, yo, it's time for you to learn. Like, this guy's older than you, more well-versed than you, but in this instance, a little different. Joe Rogan gets into an intense debate with a man who's known as a futurist. His name is Ray Kurzweil. And man, I don't know what happened with Ray. Ray used to be with it. He was hip to everything that was going on. But in this exchange between the two of them, it's like he just doesn't know anything about this. Now, what I really want to talk about in this episode is who can you trust when it comes to technology and privacy? Because Joe's coming from one place of not trusting, and Ray's coming from another place of trusting. And although we may not like what Ray has to say, we all follow what Ray is talking about. And we don't follow what Joe's talking about. I want you to see, I got a few clips for you. It's going to be Joe and then another clip of Joe. So I'm showing you the debate with Joe. Then I'm showing you why Joe feels the way he does. Something that he learned in an episode 1800. Then I'm going to show you a little bit about what Pegasus is. Then we're going to go to Edward Snowden talking about what the NSA did when he whistleblowed all those years ago. Then we got Sean Ryan and Eric Prince talking about a new type of phone, and they're touching a little bit on Pegasus. So it's a very interesting little exchange they have. And then we're going to talk about what Pegasus did to Jeff Bezos. If you didn't know, he got hacked. Then we're going to talk about the NSA spying, and Ray must know about this stuff. Then we're going to move on to Edward Snowden's greatest fear. And I want to know from you at the end, because it's a great little fear he has. It's a great little quote that he says. I want to know from you if you feel like his fear has come true or not. Let's get into it. Don't forget about IamCoachColin.com. We got sold not for sale, all that good stuff. Cancel Hollywood. Check the site out. Discount code is I am Coach Colin, all capital letters, all one word, one L in the name Colin. Let's get to this first clip.
Like it's just a thing that's tricking your body into pretending that it's involved in drama, but it's not really.
Well, you're making certain assumptions about what we'll create.
No, I'm just making an assumption.
I mean, in my mind, we would want to create better music and better art and better relationships.
Well, the relationship should be all perfect eventually, if we keep going in this general direction.
Well, it's not perfect. I mean...
But if you get artificial intelligence where we're all reading each other's minds and everyone's working towards the same goal...
Well, no, you can't read each other's minds. I mean,
ever?
We can create... Yes, we can create privacy that's virtually unbreakable, and you could keep the privacy to yourselves.
But can you do that as technology scales upward? If it continues to move... I mean, it's difficult, like your phone. Like, anyone can listen to you on your phone. And, I mean, anyone who has a significant technology...
No, actually, it has pretty good technology already. You can't really read someone else's phone.
You definitely could. Yeah, if you have Pegasus, you could hack into your phone easily. Not hard at all. The new software that they have, all they need is your phone number. All they need is your phone number, and they can look at every text message you send, every email you send. They can look at your camera. They can turn on your microphone. Easy.
We have ways of keeping total privacy, and if it's not built into your phone now, it will be.
Right, but it's definitely not built into your phone now. With the security people that really understand the capabilities of intelligence agencies, they 100% can listen to your phone. 100% can turn on your camera. 100% can record your voice.
Yes and no. I mean, we have an ability to keep total privacy in a device.
But from who? You can keep privacy from me because I don't have access to your device. But if I was working for an intelligence agency and I had access to a Pegasus program, I am in your device. Now, I've talked to people...
Only because it's not perfect. We can actually build much better privacy than exists today.
But the privacy that we have today is far less than the privacy that we had before we had phones.
I don't really quite agree with that.
How so? If you didn't have a phone, okay, and you were at home having a sensitive conversation about maybe you didn't pay as much taxes as you should, there's no way anybody would hear that. But now your phone hears that. If you have an Alexa in your home, your Alexa hears you say that. People have been charged with crimes because Alexa heard them committing murder.
We actually know how to create perfect privacy in your phone, and if your phone doesn't have that, that's just an imperfection in the way we're building these things now.
But it's not just an imperfection. It's sort of built into the program itself because that's what fuels the algorithm, is that it has access to all of your data. It has access to all of what you're interested in, what you like, what you don't like. You can't opt out of it, especially you. You've got a Google phone. That thing is just a net scooping up information.
We know how to build perfect privacy, and
How did we do it?
I mean, if it's not built into your phone now, it should be.
Unless they don't want it to be built in there, because there's an actual business model in it not being built in there.
Okay, but it can be done, and if people want that, it'll happen.
But you recognize the financial incentive in not doing that, right? Because that's what, like a company like Google, for instance, that's where they make the majority of their money is from data. Or a lot of their money, I should say.
Well, I mean, there's actually a lot of effort that goes into keeping what's on your phone private. It's not that easy.
Private from some people, but not really private. It's only private until they want to listen. And now the capability of listening to your phone is super easy.
Not really.
No? With the Pegasus program, it's very easy.
Well, that has to do with imperfections in the way phones are created.
Right, but I think it's a feature. I think part of the feature is that they want as much data from you and knowing about what you're doing, what you're talking about. Have you ever had a conversation with someone, then you see an ad for that thing on Google? That happens.
Yes, but
So something's going on where it's listening to your conversations. It's picking up on keywords.
it's not picking up on everything.
Not yet. Well, it's not unless it wants to. Like I said, if they're using a program, an intelligence program, to gather information from your phone, it is. And you're basically, you got a little spy that you carry around with you everywhere you go. Unless you're using, I mean,
if you think that's a major issue, we could build phones that are impossible to spy on.
Maybe. But if we did, well, there are some phones that like graphene. Do you know about that? Do you know about people that they take a Google phone and they put a different Linux-based operating system on it? Makes it much more difficult to track, and there's multi-levels of protection. There's a bunch of phones that are being made that are security phones. But you lose access to apps. You lose access to a lot of the features that people rely on when it comes to phones. Like, for instance, like if you have GPS on your phone, as soon as you're using GPS, you're easy to find, right? So you lose that privacy. If they want to know where Ray's phone is, they know exactly where Ray's phone is. And that's where you are, and you're with your phone. They've got you tracked everywhere you go.
It's complicated. If this were a major issue, we could definitely overcome that. Do we know?
Well, I think it's a major issue, but I don't think it's a major concern for most people.
Right.
But it's because they reap the benefits of it. Like the algorithm is specifically tailored to their
that's how we
interests.
fund the kinds of things we put on phones.
Right. But you can't opt out of it. Unless you just decide to get a flip phone. But even if you do, they figure out where you are. They triangulate you from cell phone towers.
I mean, we give up certain things in order to get the benefits of phones.
Yeah, we do.
If what you're giving up is a grave concern, we could overcome that. We know how to do that.
Yeah. If people agree that the benefit of overcoming that outweighs the loss in the financial loss that you would have with not having access to everybody's data and information.
Well, I mean, what you're giving up is a certain type of data that you want, a certain type of capability that you could buy, and so they can advertise that to you, and people feel that that's okay.
Yeah.
But for example, keeping your email private is quite feasible.
It's possible. But it's also easy to hack. Like, people could be reading your emails all the time, and you should probably assume that they do.
Well, it's a complicated issue, but we can keep, for example, your emails private. And generally we actually do that.
Generally, for most people. But my point is, as this technology scales upward, when you have greater and greater computational power, and then you're also integrated with this technology, how does that keep whatever group is in charge from being able to essentially access the thing that is inside your head now?
Here's the thing, right? I let that clip run a little long, but this is the exchange that they have. Ray can't handle this conversation that he's having with Joe. But here's the thing. I'm going to show you another clip another Rogan clip of why he feels this way. He had an episode, it was episode 1800 with Gavin DeBecker, I believe, where Gavin opened Joe's mind to a whole bunch of things that could be happening to your phone that are more than likely, we'll get into more stuff that is more than likely happening to you right now, but what could happen to your phone via what he was talking about, Pegasus. Now, the only thing I'll say before I start this clip is, where was this energy for Elon Musk? Where was, like, he's talking about the thing in your head. Elon is the guy doing the thing in people's heads. Where was this energy for Elon? Where was this energy for Mark Zuckerberg? Hey, Mark, what's going on with WhatsApp? Is it really secure? Heard there's been some security leaks. Heard there's been some hacks. What's going on there, Mark? Why'd you buy that company for $20 billion, Mark? Are you guys raking in all that data? Hey, Elon, what happens if someone hacks your brain implant? Like, where was that energy for these guys? But then the guy who seems like he's what, like, I don't know, Biden's age? Guy seems so old. All of a sudden you're giving him the business? I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But he is a Google employee, so he should be able to handle these type of questions. But I feel like he should have hit Musk with this type of stuff. But here is why Joe feels this way. After this interview, Joe's eyes were open to the surveillance state that's going on in the world.
Collecting all of this data in the phone. And so Signal is valuable. I think Signal is a good service, and but it doesn't solve the problem if a government wants you. If a government wants information, they can get it through programs like Pegasus 2.
Right. Well, how does Pegasus 2 get on your phone?
Well, different ways. It is a no-click incursion, meaning you don't have to click on anything. You might, typically you would get a text and you would open that text and that would download the little executable file, or you would watch a video and it would be in the video. But now the newest Pegasus systems, they don't even need you to do anything. They can send you a message on WhatsApp, and even if you delete it, even if you never open it, they can get in your phone.
But what if you don't use WhatsApp?
It's a help, by the way. I don't recommend WhatsApp.
Why is that?
Because WhatsApp has had for some reasons that I don't want to share, and for some reasons that I do want to share, WhatsApp has had a particularly vulnerable circumstance with regard to people getting into other people's phones. Now, having said that, there are thousands of people right now all over the world working on nothing but getting into the new iPhone operating system. And then there's thousands of people at Apple working on nothing but being sure that the new operating system is impenetrable. And this just is is an arms race that's going to go on. It's going to go on forever.
So you were saying that if you get a message through WhatsApp, but what if you don't get a message through WhatsApp? Is that executable if just a blank text message comes your way and you don't open it?
Less than that, unfortunately. You can get nothing at all with Pegasus 2. You can get nothing at all. They can enter a telephone number and they can get into your phone.
Nothing at all. No text messages,
you
so you have
anything.
No idea whatsoever.
That's correct. And that's a problem with, zero-day exploits, which is you don't know it happened, and you go on for months and months and months not knowing that somebody's in your phone is a problem.
And how do you find out if someone's in your phone?
Well, it depends on the circumstance. In the case you described, I was notified originally by somebody in CIA, then notified 8 times by the FBI about what information they had learned, and then we began to do work on the phone itself, and you learn about it in those ways, which is very difficult, by the way, because Pegasus 2. I feel like I'm giving a commercial for Pegasus 2, but most people can't buy it anyway. But Pegasus 2 is not sitting in an armchair waiting for you to arrive. Hey, I'm over here. It is extremely well hidden. Right down at the very core levels of a phone or an iPad, and but there are strategies for finding it, and they're challenging and they're evolving all the time.
So that conversation with this gentleman really opened Joe's eyes to how this all works. But I don't know. It's a very hard thing because Ray, and again, now that you've seen the 2 clips. Do we operate in the world that Ray's bringing up, where your phone could be completely safe and we sacrifice some things, or do we operate in Joe's world where we're like, oh, they can get into our phones and we need privacy? We kind of operate in Ray's world of things. where it's like, yeah, don't worry, it's fine, it's safe, and your emails are fine, and that could be secure, and we kind of really operate there. And at the end of the day, in reality, who do you know that could get Pegasus? I can't get Pegasus. I don't know about you. Maybe you have some kind of bankroll that, I couldn't possibly imagine, but it costs a pretty penny. I mean, governments are buying Pegasus. It's an Israeli-based company that sells and created Pegasus. And, Saudi Arabia, their government is known to have it. I assume the U.S. government has it as well. Probably every nation has some kind of form of it, and they're probably all using it on each other and different people. They're probably more than likely using it on certain citizens. You know what I mean? Certain rich citizens. Like Joe might have to worry about it. He's connecting with people from the CIA and the FBI, and I've heard his security detail is ex-military, possibly Blackwater, ex-Green Berets, Navy SEAL, possible FBI, CIA. Like I've heard his security detail is like wild, and lots, like a dozen or two dozen people. Apparently, when you go inside of his compound, there's a lot of people. They're working out. They seem like just regular guys, usually are pretty jacked, and they're all his security. They're everywhere. So he probably has to worry about it. I don't know. I really can't tell. And then there's the whole theory of Joe actually is in the CIA. So it's like, I don't know. Who knows? Won't know until we meet him. And don't worry, I'll bring that to you guys one day. One day I'll bring that to you guys. But that is the reason why he feels the way he does. Now, let's go a little deeper. Now, this guy was explaining what Pegasus 2 is. And he was just explaining that it's something that just can be, you don't even need a phone number to have it sent to you. Here's a little deeper look into what Pegasus is.
Pegasus can infect both iOS and Android, while remaining virtually undetectable.
So one of the ways that Pegasus will attack your phone is through what's called a zero-day vulnerability. This is a vulnerability that the phone's manufacturer doesn't yet know exists.
Pegasus is the main product of a company called NSO Group, which is an Israeli surveillance company.
So the people who are using this spyware are government clients. These will be governments around the world that the NSO Group have sold a copy of Pegasus to.
A Guardian investigation can now reveal widespread abuse of Pegasus by NSO's government clients.
The reason this investigation is so extraordinary is that we at The Guardian have gained access through Forbidden Stories to a treasure trove, tens of thousands of records.
The leaked records include the phone numbers of thousands of people who have been selected as potential targets by government.
So, just to say, this is Pegasus. This is the degree that they are using Pegasus. Government clients, Saudi Arabia, you can see it on the screen there, Mexico, Morocco, Dubai, Rwanda, India. So that's where that is. And that's one layer, right? That's the government. But now, what about what your government can do to you? Now, that was already explained to us by Edward Snowden. But to what degree? Do you remember what Edward Snowden basically said? Let's get into that. What he said that the NSA is currently doing. They didn't need access to Pegasus. They just needed access to the phone companies, and they got that access. Now, I'm going to show you that in this clip, but then also think about the fact that, Google phones, any phone, Samsung, iPhone, whatever phone that you Pixel, like whatever you use, those companies also have access. So those companies have access. The phone companies have access. And then if you're a real truther out there like Rogan or Jimmy Dore, then all of a sudden it's like the government all of a sudden can bypass all those things and get access. So let's get into Edward Snowden a little bit.
Foreign intelligence gathered overseas. Now increasingly we see that it's happening domestically. And to do that, the NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default. It collects them in its system, and it filters them, and it analyzes them, and it measures them, and it stores them for periods of time, simply because that's the easiest, most efficient, and most valuable way to achieve these ends. So while they may be intending to target someone associated with a foreign government or someone that they suspect of terrorism, they're collecting your communications to do so. Any analyst at any time can target anyone, any selector anywhere. Where those communications will be picked up depends on the range of the sensor networks and the authorities that that analyst is empowered with. Not all analysts have the ability to target everything, but I, sitting at my desk, certainly had the authorities to wiretap anyone, from you or your accountant to a federal judge to even the president if I had a personal email.
One of the extraordinary parts about this episode is that usually whistleblowers do what they do anonymously and take steps to remain anonymous for as long as they can, which they hope often is forever. You, on the other hand, have decided to do the opposite, which is to declare yourself openly as the person behind these disclosures. Why did you choose to do that?
I think that the public is owed an explanation of the motivations behind the people who make these disclosures that are outside of the democratic model. When you are subverting the power of government, that's a fundamentally dangerous thing to democracy. And if you do that in secret consistently, as the government does when it wants to benefit from a secret action that it took, it'll kind of give its officials a mandate to go, hey, tell the press about this thing and that thing, so the public is on our side. But they rarely, if ever, do that when an abuse occurs. That falls to individual citizens, but they're typically maligned. It becomes a thing of these people are against the country, they're against the government. But I'm not. I'm no different from anybody else. I don't have special skills. I'm just another guy who sits there day to day in the office, watches what's happening, and goes, this is something that's not our place to decide. The public needs to decide whether these programs and policies are right or wrong. And I'm willing to go on the record to defend the authenticity of them and say, I didn't change these. I didn't modify the story. This is the truth. This is what's happening. You should decide whether we need to be doing this.
Have you given thought to what it is that the U.S. government's response to your conduct is, in terms of what they might say about you, how they might try to depict you, what they might try to do to you?
Yeah, I could be, rendered by the CIA. I could have people come after me, or any of their third-party partners. They work closely with a number of other nations. Or they could pay off the triads, or any of their agents or assets. We've got a CIA station just up the road in the consulate here in Hong Kong, and I'm sure they're going to be very busy for the next week. And that's a fear I'll live under for the rest of my life, however long that happens to be. You can't come forward against the world's most powerful intelligence agencies and be completely free from risk, because they're such powerful adversaries that no one can meaningfully oppose them. If they want to get you, they'll get you in time. But at the same time, you have to make a determination about what it is that's important to you. And if living unfreely but comfortably is something you're willing to accept, and I think many of us are, it's the human nature. You can get up every day, you can go to work, you can collect your large paycheck for relatively little work against the public interest, and go to sleep at night after watching your shows. But if you realize that that's the world that you helped create, and it's going to get worse with the next generation and the next generation who extend the capabilities of this sort of architecture of oppression, you realize that you might be willing to accept any risk. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is, so long as the public gets to make their own decisions about how that's applied.
It's very interesting, man, because that was 10 years ago. That is Edward Snowden sitting there 10 years ago, fresh off of just whistleblowing and having to essentially escape the United States. And he talks about, it's going to get worse generation after generation. Now, I guess we could consider, what would you consider a generation? 15 years, 25 years, I'm not sure. But from now till 10 years ago, it's gotten worse. And nobody else from the NSA has stood up. And arguably it has just gotten worse and worse and worse. And no one's really done anything about it. And I think the reason for that is because our comforts stay on perfect pace, probably by design, stay on perfect pace with their need for power or their want for power. It stays on perfect pace. And if there aren't comforts that we want, then something will happen and we'll be scared, and whatever comforts that we feel like we're missing because we're scared, they'll come in and be like, okay, you know what I mean? If they need some power, they will make us uncomfortable in order to get the power, because then they'll come to us and be like, hey, you're pretty uncomfortable with the situation. Well, we can actually make it better, and we will make it better. We just need to do X, Y, Z. And then at the end of that, we're comfortable and they now have more power. And it's just like an ongoing nudge after nudge of just that. It's wild. It's wild to see that they have been doing this for a long time, a very long time, because that was 10 years ago when he whistle blew. Probably doing it 10, 20 years before that, doing it 10 years after that, 40 years at least. It's interesting. Even he said, if they want to get you, they'll get you. If they want to listen to you, they'll listen to you. Is there any way around that? Now, this gentleman says that there is a way around that and that he has the way. Now, I'm just going to preface this with, he's the founder of Blackwater. Okay? Blackwater, the private military company. He says he has a way around this. So let's listen to this.
Absolute fact. And then seeing what, you have effectively a duopoly between Apple and Google. Apple about 30% of world market share. Google, the other 70%. Those are the two operating systems which control those phones. So if you're running any Android today or any Apple iPhone, they know where you go, who you call, what you buy, and what you browse. The companies do. And they resell that data, your data, to advertisers. And even despite all the nonsense or the noise that they're saying, how we respect privacy and all the rest, your advertising ID follows you everywhere. Even if your phone is switched off, or if it's in airplane mode, it's still pinging Wi-Fi, it's still pinging towers, it knows exactly where you are. And then seeing what happened with big tech deciding who could be on the app stores, throwing them off, and literally controlling and censoring speech. I said to a couple of buddies of mine, because we had a project we were working on, a cyber forensic thing, and I said, let's pivot. We need to do a phone, an independent phone platform that is not subject to the whims of Google and Apple. And so if you've ever heard of Pegasus.
I have not.
It's an offensive cyber virus used for hacking phones.
Okay.
The guy that developed that is our CTO. But he did it not to be offensive. He did it as a way for a phone company to do remote phone service. They send you a text, they click on it, fix your phone, and then leave. When he became offensive, he left and he went and built a very secure phone, which is still used by governments today. And then he went to build the phone that controls most of the world's pacemakers. You can imagine you don't want a phone that you can hack if you're going to run a pacemaker with it.
Yeah, no kidding.
So we'll deliver the first 500 units next month. It's our hardware. It's Android-based, but it's all our code. Our phone, not made in China. Supply chain not coming from China. With our operating system, with our own store, antivirus, VPN, and secure messenger. And look, if you're 16 years old and you posted what you had for breakfast on Instagram, it's probably not for you. But if you're an adult that cares about where you go as your business, and it's not to be your data is not to be traded on with everyone, that's something to think about. So we'll sell a phone for just under $1,000, comparable in speed, storage, camera quality to the highest end of what the other guys sell. But our operating system does not contain any of those hooks for harvesting and selling your data.
So it's a proprietary phone and hardware.
Correct. Operating system, hardware, all the rest is called unplugged. And we're pretty excited about it. It also, it comes with with an actual kill switch. Because again, if you turn this phone off and you separate this, it separates the electronics from the battery so that off is off. And so you buy it for just under $1,000. The second year, you'll pay $10 a month, and we guarantee that none of your data is collected, stored, analyzed, or resold. If you still want to use other secure messaging apps like Signal or Threema or Telegram, that's available in our app store. We even have...
Is it necessary? Would it be necessary at all to have Signal other than contacts?
Nope. No. We have our own secure messenger. It works voice call, video call, and our messenger generates a new encryption key every call.
No shit.
Yes.
Now, I'm only playing this. Again, this guy's the founder of Blackwater. I don't know that I trust him. I don't know him. His name's Eric Prince. This is from the Sean Ryan podcast. If you don't know about that podcast, it's a great podcast. He stays focused on, I won't say conspiracy stuff, but he stays focused on surveillance state stuff, technology. He's talking to a lot of people who are ex-military, ex-agency folks. He's pretty tuned in. The conversations he gets into are pretty great. So the thing about this is, and if you're somebody who's starting a channel, he says that you can use any of his clips as long as you want, as long as you reference his show. So for anybody out there that's just starting up, this is a great place to start. Sean Ryan podcast. Now, the guy is the founder of Blackwater, Eric Prince. I don't know that I trust him when he says he's made a phone and he's working with the guy who made Pegasus, and the only reason that he made Pegasus was to do work on people's phone. I don't believe that for a second. I don't believe any of that. But I do show you this clip to show you that there are ways of making things that are private, like Ray was saying. Ray was actually saying to Joe that there are ways of making a phone private. There are ways of bypassing these things that Joe was talking about. There really are. But here's the question. Who can you trust? Who will you trust? Like, right now, we trust Google. And, you may say you don't, but you communicate with your friend who has an Android, so you kind of do. You trust Apple, and you may say you don't, but vice versa. You communicate with someone that has an iPhone. We do trust these companies. Or let's even better, maybe you don't trust them, but you still use their stuff. You still have your pictures. You still have conversations. You still send text messages. You still have jokes with your friends and group chats. And some people, I don't trust WhatsApp. I still have it. I don't touch it or anything, but it's still there in case somebody's like, oh, let's jump on WhatsApp, blah, blah, blah. I still have all these things. So who do you trust? I don't trust this guy, but I'm still Apple, Samsung, iPhone, Google Pixel. I've still used all those phones. So who do you actually trust when it comes to something that's not going to be listening in on your conversations, that's not going to acquiesce to some agency that says, oh, this person is a domestic terrorist and we need his phone records. We need his conversations. We need to know where he is. Like, who can you really trust? I don't really know. So it's a interesting thought process, because this guy clearly knows something. He's made this phone. It's called Unplugged. So it's a real phone that you can buy, and supposedly, like you said, it has a kill switch, and off means it's really off, and I guess, but what resume could someone really bring up where you would trust them? I don't know. If Trump made a phone, maybe I trust it. I don't know. Tucker Carlson makes a phone, maybe I trust it. But then I'd be like, what are you guys doing making phones? I don't know. I don't know who you could really trust. It's interesting. I don't know. I really don't know. But let's get into the next clip. What Pegasus did to Jeff Bezos. So now you've heard about Pegasus. You keep hearing one guy says, the newest one, you don't need anything sent. That whole video gave a breakdown of everything it does. But here's an actual account of what it did to Jeff Bezos and how it actually resulted in a journalist losing his life. Let's get into that.
This investigation on how Jeff Bezos' iPhone got hacked is a wild ride, a story about international espionage, blackmail, and WhatsApp between the world's richest man and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Let's walk through the timeline here on this. On Wednesday, the United Nations called for a full investigation into Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's alleged role in hacking Jeff Bezos' iPhone X. They received a report from FTI Consulting, a business advisory firm that Jeff Bezos hired to figure out how his phone even got hacked in the first place. The results detail a very coordinated effort to install spyware on Jeff Bezos' phone. November 2017, the Saudi regime buys Pegasus 3. This is spyware developed by the Israeli surveillance company NSO Group. March 21st, 2018, Jeff Bezos is invited to dinner out in Los Angeles by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS. That dinner happens on April 4th, 2018, where later they exchange numbers to chat on WhatsApp. During this entire time, Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi is publishing columns criticizing MBS and the Saudi Arabian government. May 1st, 2018, just a month after the dinner between Bezos and MBS sends Bezos a video file on WhatsApp. Researchers believe this is where the spyware infected Bezos' iPhone. Hours after Bezos' phone got infected, investigators found that his phone had been sending out data at a rate of 29,000% more than normal. Over the next few months, it would continue to harvest data from Bezos' phone at this alarming rate. In total, it had amassed more than 6 gigabytes of data off of Bezos' phone. Not much analysis could be done on the spyware because the video downloader was encrypted through WhatsApp and the researchers couldn't really get a look at the code on it. Between May and June 2018, several Saudi activists with ties to Khashoggi are also infected with malware via WhatsApp. October 2nd, 2018. The Saudi Arabian government kills Khashoggi. November 8th, 2018, MBS texts Bezos a photo of a woman who resembles Lauren Sanchez, the woman that Bezos is cheating on his wife with. In the photo, it's a meme that talks about arguing with a woman. At the time, Bezos was going through a divorce with his wife, which was not public knowledge. January 9th, 2019, Bezos announces that he's getting a divorce with Mackenzie Bezos, his wife of 25 years. February.
So there's a whole timeline of everything that happened, but supposedly the information that they were getting off of his phone had something to do with that journalist, being able to find the journalist, being able to know his whereabouts. All of that together resulted in him passing away. Now, again, you can't really say that they did anything, but he was criticizing them quite a bit and then ended up losing his life. We don't know the inner workings of his personal life. Could have been drug deal gone wrong. Could have, done something to some chick. Could have pissed off some guys at a bar. There's so many different things that could have happened. But if you're talking about the Saudi government and then all of a sudden you pass away, we are just left to make the connection, right? Again, so very interesting what happened with Jeff Bezos, but that's how Pegasus works in action. It could be anybody, and he gets it sent. And from the other video that I showed you, Saudi Arabia was one of the countries that bought a version of Pegasus. So they are on the list. And it's very interesting that this Israeli company is willing to sell to Saudi Arabia. You would think these Jewish people would be like, we're not selling to Saudis. Like, we're not doing that with you guys. There's so many other countries that we could deal with. We have a great relationship with the United States. We're just going to sell to them and Canada and, Europe and all of our allies. That would make the most sense. But I guess this company is not controlled by the Israeli government, so they can sell it to whoever they want to, and they don't really care either way. So very interesting. Now, let's get into a little bit more of the NSA and their spying. Let's go.
That phone in your pocket right now might be a government spying device, according to a stunning article from the Guardian newspaper in the UK. The story says a top secret court order is forcing Verizon to turn over all phone records for calls made in the U.S. to the National Security Agency, and not just calls made to overseas numbers. When you call grandma in Nebraska, the NSA knows. This is a wide, indiscriminate net. They're not even looking for someone specific. When a call is made, Verizon turns over this information: the phone number, phone serial numbers, the location the call comes from, the time of the call, the duration of the call, and all the same information for the person on the other end of the phone, even if they're not a Verizon customer. And If you move from one tower range to another, you can be tracked. Pretty much everything about the call, except what's actually being said, is turned over under the order from the secret Foreign Intelligence Surveillance, or FISA, court. Given that, it would not take much to figure out who you are. Without exactly confirming or denying the FISA order, Deputy White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest defended the idea behind it today. The information of the sort described in the article has been a critical tool, he said, in protecting the nation from terror threats. This order reportedly extends from April 25th to July 19th, but it seems to be just a continuation of a court order that's been going on for 7 years, one Congress has known all about. The Republican chairman of the House Select Committee on Intelligence today called it a vital tool.
Within the last few years, this program was used to stop a terrorist attack in the United States. We know that. It's important. It fills in a little seam that we have, and it's used to make sure that there is not an international nexus to any terrorism event that they may believe is ongoing in the United States. So in that regard, it is a very valuable thing.
It's a very valuable thing. It's always, always, always to protect us. Always. It never fails. It's never... you might even respect them more if they're just like, we got to know what you're doing. We got to know what you're doing. There's hundreds of millions of you. We have to know what you guys are up to. What if you're going to, I don't know, what if you're going to try and take us over or something? We have to know that. We have to know. I would be like, oh, okay, so they're a little scared. Okay, it makes sense. But every single time it's like terror, and we're not afraid. We got artillery, but for you guys are like our babies. We got to protect our babies. So we got to listen to what's going on. You know, we got a little monitor the same way we'd have with a little baby. And we're just watching you. That's all. We're just making sure nothing happens to you. You know, it never fails. It never fails. So let's get into, and also just to bring up really quick before I get into the last Edward Snowden clip, that was 10 years ago. That clip that you just saw, that was 10 years ago. Once again, 10 years ago, they were talking about this stuff. Did it stop? Were there any Occupy or surveillance protests, you know, same way that you had George Floyd protests? Was there anything like that? No. So why would they stop? Why would they ever slow down? Technology only got better. They never really got reprimanded. So wouldn't they just keep doing it at a faster pace? Nobody boycotted Verizon. They were talking about Verizon. I'm sure many other phone companies are willing to open up the door that way. Nobody boycotted them the way Bud Light got boycotted. Nobody stepped in and did anything. So they got no consequence whatsoever. If there's no consequence, obviously you're just going to keep on doing it over and over and over and over again. It's interesting because it makes me feel like, what could we actually do? All you can really do is kind of, you know, get a flip phone, do your best to just kind of dodge it. But it feels like you shouldn't have to dodge that type of surveillance. It feels like they shouldn't be able to do that to you, right? But then the next thing you know, there might be some kind of attack that happens. And now all of a sudden everybody's clamoring for like, where is the protection? Who's going to protect us? And then they step in and they say, well, you know, we got to listen to those phones. If we were listening to your phones, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. I'm not going to get into that whole conversation, but that is a tactic. I will say that. Anyways, Edward Snowden talking about his greatest fear when it comes to this whole thing of him blowing the whistle.
The greatest fear that I have regarding the outcome for America of these disclosures is that nothing will change. People will see in the media all of these disclosures. They'll know the lengths that the government is going to grant themselves powers unilaterally to create greater control over American society and global society. But they won't be willing to take the risks necessarily to stand up and fight to change things, to force their representatives to actually take a stand in their interests. And the months ahead, the years ahead, it's only going to get worse until eventually there will be a time where policies will change, because the only thing that restricts the activities of the surveillance state are policy. Even our agreements with other sovereign governments, we consider that to be a stipulation of policy rather than a stipulation of law. And because of that, a new leader will be elected. They'll flip the switch, say that because of the crisis, because of the dangers that we face in the world, some new and unpredicted threat, we need more authority, we need more power, and there will be nothing the people can do at that point to oppose it. And it'll be turnkey tyranny.
And then I think sometime after, actually, I think it was Obama that brought it up. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna do everything we can, and we're not gonna undermine the Constitution." And it's exactly what his fear was happened. It just got worse. But my question really is, how does it get better? How on earth can something like that get better? It is so out of control with so many tentacles. It's such a big dragon. How could you ever get that under control? And on top of that, are we ready for the discomfort that would come from not having all these things? I like my phone. I like it a lot. I'm sure you like yours. Some of you are watching it on your phone. Are we ready for the discomfort that comes when they're like, okay, well, now every single app costs $15. Now every single thing costs this much dollars. And, you have your data all racked up and you got to do something with your data now. And you're the one that has to get rid of it. And you have to learn how to delete it. And are you ready for all that? Most of us are not. There's some people who are clamoring for that. They're like, yeah, give me that. Give me all my data back. Give me all my privacy back. I'll pay the money. I don't care. But a lot of people, they don't want that. And there's even more people that can't even afford that. So it seems like we're in quite the predicament. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Other than that, I'm out.